Thank you. I'd like to also acknowledge my she's actually not presenting, but she's my worker in terms of what we did with this particular crash. So Tia was subjected to, you'll see later on, she was subjected to some risky situations, which, I've as I said, with this particular crash, and I've acknowledged her in past presentations. So we both work for Allied Forensic Group, which is a company that was set up by Bill Karamitis and Helen Karamitis. I work as a contractor there. Tia is a full-time employee there. And we have Chris here, Bill's son, who also works for Allied Forensics Group. So we do mostly crash recons. This particular crash, though, I did that before joining AFG, and so this was New South Wales Police had asked me to look at this crash, and so it involved 7 vehicles. It was a rear-end crash involving an articulated truck that was carrying heavy prefabricated concrete in a convoy of 2 trucks, and 2 people died as a result of this particular crash, and the police had a problem. And actually what's been happening lately, I've been involved in these head-on crashes and these types of crashes where they've had issues with experts having a go at each other, and I come in as the umpire, I suppose. They've been asking me to come in as an umpire to see, where the truth lies. So the sequence of events, it was a line of traffic that was stopped as a result of road works. So it was a 40 kilometre per hour sign. The RTA, it was at that time the Road Traffic Authority, was holding a lollipop 40 k's stopping traffic. So there was a whole bunch of traffic stopped. The prime mover truck was a triaxle trailer transporting prefabricated concrete panels in a convoy with another truck. And he was travelling at about 87, I estimate, when he hit that line of vehicles. There were 7 vehicles involved in the crash. The truck that crashed into the line of the vehicles, that was vehicle 1. Vehicle 2 was a Toyota Camry, and so that's where the 2 people died. And then the Suzuki Vitara was vehicle 3. I think I've actually made an amendment to my presentation, so I'll change that back. But vehicle 2 was the one where the 2 people died, and vehicle 3 was a Suzuki Vitara, and it's just an amazing story what happened to the driver of that vehicle, and we'll talk about that in a moment. A Holden Commodore was vehicle 4, which had people from New South Wales Police, but they were administrative people, they weren't officers. And then we had a Toyota Camry, vehicle 5. There was a bunch of people, Indigenous people, who happened to get hurt as well. And then a B-double 60-tonne truck fully loaded with grain. Okay, so it was 60 tonnes. And so it was vehicle 6. And then a Volkswagen utility in front of that grain truck was vehicle 7. So there's the crash. So as you can see, that's the prime mover is with the slabs that's crashed, and you'll see all the different vehicles. I'll identify those vehicles in a moment. But what's important is the 40K sign, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the truck hits vehicle 2, the Toyota Camry, which is pushed to the right across the opposing northbound lane, and then the western and then across into the western verge, unsealed shoulder, with a consequence that a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old male university students were killed. And they were killed instantly. What's going on? Yep. Vehicle 3, the Suzuki Vitara, was then struck and overridden by the prime mover, such that it was jammed under the prime mover. As the truck continued forward, the driver was trapped inside the vehicle under the truck at the end of the crash event. he survived with serious injuries, but he suffered very serious burns, and they had to cut him out from under the prime mover. It's quite amazing. Vehicle 4, the Holden Commodore, and Vehicle 5, Toyota Camry, were then pushed by the prime mover with the trailers still attached and the vehicle 3 underneath out of its pathway as it kept on barrelling through these vehicles across to the right in the opposing northbound lane, and then again the western verge. These subsequent impacts resulted in other occupants receiving serious injuries, and they had to be choppered out. There was a couple of choppers, and they had to be taken to the hospital. I think one went to Sydney and another went to Dubbo. The prime mover then struck the rear trailer of the B-double, a 60-tonne truck with full brakes on, which then in turn pushed the VW vehicle in front of it, vehicle 7. The kingpin on the B-double broke, the cabin sleeper was crushed, and the driver survived, suffering only bruising and whiplash. So here it is. There's again the crash scene. This is looking west, and this is a close-up of it. And you can see there's truck 1, right? That's the articulated truck with the concrete prefab carrying that. Truck 2, vehicle 2 is down here. This is where the 2 died, the 2 deaths. So it's underneath that tarpaulin there. There's vehicle 3 is underneath that prime mover, rolled in a ball. Right? And there's vehicle 4 with the police, from the police force, the administrators. And then there's vehicle 5, right? So it didn't get pushed too far, but it certainly got pushed. And there's 6, the grain vehicle. You can see the back end of it is damaged, and the kingpin has sheared. And there's vehicle 7, which got pushed into the back, the Volkswagen. Okay, that's one of the deceased. That's the driver from vehicle 2, and the other deceased was in the vehicle, the passenger. It's 40, right? There's the police diagram. Okay, so you can see gouge marks, skid marks, etc. That's all been, and yaw marks, that's been identified by the police when they did the full survey. Now here's the driver's defence. Okay, and this is what sunk the driver essentially in terms of a custodial sentence. The ambulance paramedic who attended the driver, he told him that his accelerator jammed, right? Tried to brake, but said there were no brakes. Then he changed his version to the care flight doctor during the flight to Liverpool Hospital. Said he stated that he was driving down the highway at approximately 80, saw that there was a road of stationary vehicles ahead, attempted to apply the brakes, but noticed that the throttle had jammed. Similar story. But then to the surgeons on day 2 after the crash, recalled, said that he had an asthma coughing fit. He stated that he couldn't really recall the event, but stated that he had a coughing fit prior to the event, following which he blacked out and then crashed into the vehicles. This is after he spoke to the lawyer, his defence lawyer. Right. He claimed 2 months later in a police interview that he had a coughing fit which rendered him unconscious, didn't remember approaching the site and applying the brakes. Okay, so we come to this outrageous situation that occurs in New South Wales, the Jimenez versus the Queen case. In this particular instance, this was an appeal. The appeal went in on the 6th of May 1992, or the judgment was at that time. But the actual case, what happened was at about 11 p.m. on the 13th June 1988, right? So notice the date difference. You've got 4 years here, almost. The applicant set out to travel south in his BMW sedan. This is a separate, right, case. From the Gold Coast in Queensland to Sydney in New South Wales. He was accompanied by 3 female companions, one of whom was Janelle Stefanoni. Before setting out, the applicant slept for 4 hours. From about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Stefanoni first drove the car for about 400 kilometres, during which time the applicant slept. At about 3:30 a.m, right, that's the critical time when people fall asleep at the wheel. On the 14th of June 1988, the applicant took over driving of the car. At about 6 a.m, at Ungai Creek on the Pacific Highway, approximately 30 kilometres north of Kempsey. Kempsey always pops up, doesn't it, in these crashes all the time. The car failed to take a moderate right-hand curve in the highway. It travelled on to the eastern gravel shoulder, continued on and collided with a tree, and then with 2 other trees. Stefanoni, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, was not wearing a seatbelt, which is unfortunate, was killed. The other 2 passengers were in the rear seat. Found guilty by a jury at trial, he was convicted of culpable driving, for which he was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment to be served by way of periodic detention. However, he appealed. And when he appealed, where the question is whether a driver who falls asleep at the wheel is guilty of driving in a manner dangerous to the public, the relevant period of driving at which immediately precedes his falling asleep, the relevant period cannot be that during which the driver was asleep, because during that time, his actions were not conscious or voluntary. In the strict definition of culpable driving, right? I can understand how they could have come to that conclusion, but should they have done this is another question. So in order for Jimenez to be found guilty, the prosecution had to prove that his driving was a danger to the public because of his tired and drowsy condition. The court found that although the warning signs of fatigue are relevant, the existence of those signs does not necessarily mean that someone is guilty. Rather, the question is whether the driver was so tired that in the circumstances he or she was a danger to the public. And this is what I'll see if this will come up. Yeah, it does. There you go. Here. Okay, let me see.
You've got to change screen.
Yeah, got to change screen. It's all right. I'll if I can find the mouse, that's the problem.
Keeps flashing on the screen.
Oh, it's on the screen. I'll see if I can.
Right.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got it. Okay. Where is it? I'll just shut that down. Oops, sorry. Okay, can you see that? There you go. So look at this. They advertise. The lawyers are advertising. You want to get out of a charge where you've fallen asleep at the wheel? Come with me. I'll be your defendant lawyer. And it's all over the place in New South Wales. It's just disgraceful. So the Jimenez case, right? All right, well, we'll get back to this.
So the gist of it is that the High Court decided that he wasn't tired enough, or there were no...
No, he was not in control of his vehicle. He's not in control of his vehicle. He's asleep.
But before he gets to that stage, he just wasn't tired enough to indicate that he was about to fall asleep.
Well, he's probably driving his car okay until the moment he fell asleep.
I think what they're saying though is,
Hey?
what they're saying, I believe, is it dangerous? Because is it representative of negligent behavior, or do most of us drive tired? I think that's really the point. Can anyone fall asleep at the wheel, or is it actually negligent behavior? And I think in that case, you have to demonstrate you've been driving for 16 hours or whatever, prove that you actually you're being negligent.
Yeah. So the problem is the New South Wales Police have to prove that someone was in control of their car if they're to be charged and found guilty of culpable driving. That's the bottom line. So the request was made. It's a forensic investigation, and as I say, instruction. I'm teaching to the converted here and preaching to the knowledgeable here, but instructions are critical, and I channel through my very close friend, Tiers, and my friend, and a few others have known him, George Recknitzer, who passed away last year, right? George, yeah, may he rest in peace. So George, he was a member of FESA, of course, and so George would always hammer me, follow the instructions, focus on the instructions, peel the onion layers, fight any desire to reach any conclusions. So I was instructed to reconstruct the collision, the time of impact. Was the truck being controlled by someone moments before the collision? Could the truck have been driven like it was moments before the collision if the driver was unconscious or asleep? And then can any driver input be confirmed? Braking, steering, switches, controls. So it was quite an interesting case. And both Tia and myself were asked to look at had he braked. And we had to establish had he braked. They'd stored the truck and a couple of the vehicles in the, was it Dubbo? I think it was Dubbo, in the Dubbo holding yards. And we actually went to inspect those vehicles. This is the truck. You can see all the gouge marks, all of the dirt. This is walking through the scene. So it's quite an incredible crash with a lot of energy. There are the brake marks, and the police, the copper that was in charge of this case, he was a senior constable, and he was looking at these skid marks, and he's saying, could he have applied his brakes, right, prior to impact? And as a result of that, he was in control of his car, obviously, if he applied his brakes. So we were tasked with that. Here's some vision of the vehicles. So that one under the tent, that's where the two died. Here's one of the vehicles, right? I think I've forgotten which one that is, vehicle 5 or something. That's the one where the two died. So you can see that it's completely severed. There's the one that the police were in, police administrators were in. And here's this particular vehicle. Look at how this Vitara has been crushed and rolled into a ball as it continued and impacted into the rear of the 60 tonner rather. There it is. That's in here. He's still alive in there. And they went up to the scene. The police and the rescue people were going around. They heard a sound. They heard someone help, and they identified he was in there. It was quite remarkable. And so they jacked it up and got him out. But then this is the truck it hit, right? So with that ball underneath and pushed the truck forward. So there's skid marks. I was able to establish, did some energy calculations, conservation of momentum. That's the vehicle. That's vehicle. No, that's actually yes, that is vehicle 2. The one where they sorry. That's vehicle 2 that got underneath the Vitara. That's the Vitara, and that's the one that got that's actually vehicle 2. The other one's vehicle 3. It's the other way around, and so this one is where they died. Yeah. Okay, so we started removing light globes when we went to the yard. First thing you do, see whether the brakes indicates whether the brakes are on. And so when brakes are on, or when a filament is heated, then you can work out whether someone or there's electricity going through that filament during the deceleration, because it then should distort. So we looked at the truck. We did the driver apply the brakes? There's all of the marks. So we were able to get distances. But what we found was, when we looked at it, the hydraulic cylinder had been pierced, and also what we found was that the hoses during the crash had been cut. So the brakes were applied automatically, because as soon as you lose hydraulics, that's its default position is brakes on.
That's not until point of impact.
Sorry?
That's not until point of impact, though.
Well, post-impact.
Yeah, so it's not relevant to skid marks.
Okay, so, no, that's a good question. No, because that's what the policeman thought. That's exactly what the policeman thought. However, when you go and do the recon and you work out where those brakes came on, they came on when the cylinder got ruptured and the hose got cut. That's when they came on. Because you can work out what position within the crash sequence where the vehicle was. So it was way too far forward. That's the yeah. There's the trailer. That's the slab it was carrying. So the concrete prefab. And there's our friend Tina. She's all scared. She's very scared of the spiders underneath there. You know, a funnel web or something's going to come out and bite her. So she was looking at deformation underneath there. So what we got though, we got the light bulb from the truck, and you'll notice the light bulb, the glass is frosted, and so we sent that to the policeman, to the senior constable that was involved in this case. And you'll notice he then cut very gently away the glass and then had a look and photographed the filaments. And that one that's bent, that's actually it's not a brake light, that's actually the tail light that was on, whereas the brake light was not on. So in other words, brakes weren't applied.
Sorry, how do you know whether the brake light was on at that time?
Oh, if the brake light was on during the deceleration, that filament will be the same as the tail light, it'll be bent.
If it was on and if it wasn't working?
And if it wasn't working, it's like that. It's flat.
How do you know whether it was working or not working? Sorry, I questioned your
It's
electricity.
whether it's on or off.
I'm assuming it's the temperature running through the.
You're right.
Yeah. It softens the metal.
Because the acceleration change.
It's more malleable, and so it then deforms. So, but you might be right. I mean, he may have had defective brake lights. Exactly. But that's, that could be presented. But okay, so why are you driving a truck that's got defective brake lights?
That happens, you know that as well as I do, that's frequently out there. I mean, today I would have seen 3 cars in front of me without some lights working. So.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a stretch.
Raph, if it was going to bend because it was on, it would bend many, many times.
No, it bends roughly like that. And the police look out for this. We were surprised that they hadn't grabbed the globes. You'll find, and this is, the police, the Victorian Crash Investigation Squad, first thing they do when they go to a crash and there's an issue of a culpable driving, someone hasn't braked, they grab the globes straight away. They just take them out.
So this is not definitive evidence because the brake light might not have been working.
Well, he could say they were defective. He said his brakes were defective, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
All drivers say that.
Okay, so we have to prove another way that it was in control of his vehicle.
Yeah.
So this is telling us he hadn't applied his brakes during when it was crashing.
I believe he might
Not have applied brakes, or his brake could have been defective. Yeah.
And filament globes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not LED globes.
No. LED is a different story. That's a totally different story.
If he wants to plead a vehicle defect, well, he's still in the gun, isn't he?
He's still got a case. Yeah. Still got a defence case. Absolutely.
Sorry, it'll be
Yep.
somewhere on.
Sorry?
Picture?
Yeah, that's the tail light. It's not the brake light. Okay, so how do we prove he was in control of his car? Well, it so happened that the vehicle behind him that was travelling had a dash cam, and they downloaded the dash cam. And so, let's see. Hopefully this will work.
Sorry, just before you go beyond that, was the other brake light deformed?
We didn't pull the other. I don't think it was about.
One brake light was not working, you didn't check the other brake light.
I don't think we could because it was deformed. I think it was smashed.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I'm confused, your taking a possible as evidence. Yeah. It's
You gotta go through everything. It's the onion. You're peeling the onion here, aren't you?
What about the other brake light which saw the same circumstances?
I don't think it was available. I think there was damage. It was damaged. I can't. We would have pulled them if we had have. I can't remember now. It's so far back.
Went into the back of it.
No, he crashed into a vehicle and he damaged one of the lights. Oh, sorry, in the rear. Yeah, in the rear.
The rear is where the brake lights are.
So it's because
Several
it's
sets of
hot
brake
and it
lights.
is decelerating
Yeah,
rapidly.
but you haven't checked the other brake light. That one wasn't.
It
Was the other one?
Okay, correct.
There's
But-
two on the prime mover
But
and two
in
on the
this
front.
case, the rear of it hasn't hit anything, so it's the damage.
So it should have been deformed if it was on, but you didn't check it.
Not sure. It might have been damaged because the concrete material was going forward. Up over the top, and it might have taken it out. I just can't remember that we would have taken that light.
Sorry, but.
Yeah, I know you get. yeah, you're just as careful as I am. Yeah, just as detailed. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look. So this was the video. You'll notice here's the vehicle's up ahead. You'll notice, watch the left side of the tyres, the wheels, on the fog line, relative to the fog line. That's the fog line.
No, it's not. It's the white line.
Wow. Oh. Okay. Right. Okay, we've got to focus here. Okay, we'll go back again. So we call that the fog line, edge line. Right, now, the vehicle is travelling, so it's right of the fog line. Now it's starting to move to the left, over the fog line. See the other truck coming the other way, this truck. He moved out, and then he's gone back in again, and now the crash happens. That's the crash. That's the instant those two died. And so when you look at it, I'll run it once more. So he's had all these signs, right? Slow down, 60, 80, work zone. He's missed all of that. And he's just,
As has the car.
as the car behind him, well, he's following. Exactly right. Exactly right. And so he moves across, comes back in again, and then collides. And you can see this sign coming up here now. So there was a work zone, right? Right, so.
Sorry, Raph, the yellow stripes on the road, were they also part of the work zone thing? I noticed
What yellow stripes?
there's two yellow stripes in his lane there.
Show us again. Yeah.
What yellow stripes? They're white, aren't they?
No, two yellow stripes.
Oh, those, yes, that's indicating there's for the work zone, that's right. Yeah, the ones that went across, yes. Okay, so here, the truck wheels, you can pick it up. It's the resolution's low, granted, but you can see that the wheels are to the right of that fog line. This is 21 seconds before the collision. Then that's 11 seconds. It's on the fog line. Here's the other truck coming. And then he goes back again after he's passed that. And in his testimony, so there we go. That's 1 second before. So he's come back across. So he's in control. So during the police interview, he told them, oh, look, I'm very wary of other trucks coming. I always give them plenty of room. And that sunk him. So the speed at the time of the truck impact was, I worked it out as 87 kilometres per hour at the time. That pretty much was consistent with the GPS log data, which was about 80, but that logs, once per second, so resolution's low. And in the interview, he said he was travelling about 85 when he hit. So it confirmed. So was the truck, the images extracted from the vehicle show that he did carry out a steering manoeuvre. At about 11 seconds prior to the crash, passing room for the blue B double, approaching in the opposite direction, northbound lane, the accused completed this small swerve manoeuvre at around 5 seconds before impact, and he stated in his police interview he needed to give room to passing trucks. So pretty much the jury, when they heard that, that was it. He was gone. So could the truck have been driven like it was moments before the driver, if he was unconscious? Well, the accused was steering the truck, and so he was steering the truck at 1 minute and 14 seconds prior to impact. He was moving the truck. We could see him steering, and likewise at 1 minute 3 seconds prior to impact, and around 12 seconds he was trying to move over for that other heavy truck. Can the driver be confirmed? These are the instructions from the lawyers, right? From the lawyer. There appeared to be a continuous steering input, and in particular around 11 seconds prior to impact. Interviews with various witnesses and with the accused indicate the brakes were not applied just prior to impact. No one saw the brakes come on. There were witnesses following. And the brakes were eventually applied, and skid marks from the prime mover noted in the CAD police drawing from the site survey. However, this was likely the result of the brake cylinder being ruptured and the hose brake line severed, which in turn resulted in the prime mover brakes coming on automatically. So the driver was found guilty, sentenced to 9.5 years, eligible for parole this year. He already appealed in May 2022, but was not granted that appeal. So the parents of the deceased, all they wanted was for him to say, sorry, I cocked up. And he didn't. Showed no remorse, changed his version a few times, and that was enough for the judge to sentence him to that time. Also, he got his mother to hock her house, take out a massive mortgage to pay for the defence lawyer, and she lost all of that. Right? So it has this knock-on effect. So you'll find it in the newspapers. If you look it up, Dubbo crash, it's in the media, so you can find it there. Okay, now I want to do a discussion separate to this case totally, but I want to talk about truck safety, because I'm sure Peter's going to be talking about truck safety. Driver fatigue, I want to talk about that because this got raised, right, during this crash. Permitted driving hours and a politician's understanding of speed versus road crashes. And this is pretty bad, what I'll show you today. Autonomous truck braking and ADR. Okay, so we're going to talk about that now. So we did a study. How am I going for time there, Jeff? I think I'm still okay.
Yeah, well, I think we'll went all of ours brought out.
Yep. Okay. So we can keep on going. Okay, great. So what we did, there was a study which Anne Williamson, this is when I was at UNSW, and I worked with Anne Williamson in the Injury Risk Management Research Centre, and then later at the Transport and Road Safety Research Centre. And so Anne Williamson, Marina Friswell, who's a truck expert, Anne Williamson is an expert on fatigue. Jake Olivier is an expert in biostatics, and I was involved in it too. So what we did is we got 90 drivers recruited to do a 2-hour drive in a driving simulator. We divided them into 3 groups. One made ratings of their sleepiness, likelihood of falling asleep, and likelihood of crashing over the next few minutes at prompts occurring at every 200-second interval throughout the drive. The second group rated sleepiness and likelihood of falling asleep at prompts, but pressed a button on the steering wheel at any time if they felt that they were near to crashing. And the third made no ratings, and only used a button press if they felt a crash was likely. So fatigue and sleepiness was encouraged by monitoring driving conditions and an imposed shorter than usual sleep in the night before and by afternoon testing. Drivers who reported that they were possibly likely or very likely to fall asleep in the next few minutes were more than 4 times more likely to crash subsequently. Those who rated themselves as sleepy or likely to fall asleep had a more than 9-fold increase in the hazards of centerline crossing compared to those who rated themselves as alert. The research shows clearly that drivers can detect changes in their levels of sleepiness sufficiently to make a safe decision to stop driving due to sleepiness. In other words, these excuses that the driver wouldn't know is just total BS. They know. You know you're about to fall asleep and you choose to drive on, and that should be a culpable charge because we've got the research. Sorry? No, it wasn't. No. This is post-case. So drivers know, and the law needs to be changed in New South Wales as a result of this study. Also, what we're working on is how police, just like you do a breathalyzer test, how you can test the fatigue level of a driver. Now, there's the Karolinska KISS device, which is mounted on a vehicle, and it can detect your level of fatigue, right? And it should be discernible by police pulling you over, looking at that device and working out, okay, are you driving at a dangerous level? So we need to change the laws to be able to curb this sort of stuff.
Was this study independent of the Dubbo crash or the...
Independent, totally. This was post-Dubbo crash, post-court case. Now, the next issue, permitted hours of driving. And I have a real bugbear with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. I think they're reckless, to tell you the honest truth, that they haven't done something about this. So in the ECE, over a 24-hour period, you can work 9 hours as a truck driver. You can extend to 10, but only for 2 of those days within a week. In Australia, we're allowed to work 12 hours, but if you do this advanced fatigue management course or a basic fatigue management, you can drive for 15 and a half hours or 14 hours for the basic fatigue management course. Over a 7-day period, you're not allowed to work more than 56 hours in the EU. Here, we can do 72 hours and 84 if you do this basic fatigue management course. It is crazy. And this is about money. This is about transport money. It's greed that's governing this, right? Your Wheaties packets are being transported for less if we allow these long driving hours. 14 days, it's 90 hours maximum ECE. Here, we've got 144 hours, 154, 140. And that's what's going on here. That's why they're taking the drugs. That's why they've got these machines, right, that monitor their sleepiness, not sleepiness, but their eye closure. They've pushed in that direction technology to keep the drivers awake instead of trying to deal with it and give the drivers a decent day's rest, a decent life, instead of pushing them to these extremes. Now, this is Melinda Pavey, right? She was the Minister for Transport under the Liberal government, right? And she was responsible for safety. She was with the Nationals, right? The Nationals sided up with the fishers and shooters. You know, don't tell me how to drive on roads. You know, I want to drive fast. Getting from A to B, I want to get there quick. That's the sort of attitude that was confronting us. So this is the monument to the crash victims. This is at this site, at the Dubbo crash site, right? So the parents did this. They put the memorial up for their children, right? There's a close-up. And this is Melinda Pavey. I found her card there. This is when Tia and I went and had a look. It was disgraceful. And she says, we will work hard every day to ensure our roads are safer and our drivers are better. I'm so sorry for your terrible loss. Bloody crocodile tears. That's all I can say about this bullshit. Because what she then did, she increased the speed limit from 100 to 110. And when you look at this graph, this is well established from laws of physics, from crash investigation, etc., the Nielsen curve. It is a very powerful model, and you find that if you increase the speed, right, by 10%, you get a 48% increase in fatalities. That's what she did. She didn't listen. Didn't listen to any of the road experts.
So is that
Yep.
Australian only?
What?
That's only in Australia.
No, that's global.
Working global.
Global. Yep. He did a study. He did European countries. Nielsen looked at
They
European
drive
countries.
slower. They drive. for
They
less
don't
time.
drive slower.
They drive
You
for less time and they drive faster.
no.
On the autobahns.
Does that include the truck?
Autobahns have got barriers, are set up specially if you have a crash for survivability. Off the autobahns, Germany has more speed cameras than Australia, about 4 to 1.
Speed limits.
And speed limits, heavy speed limits. It's
Are lower
tough,
than ours.
tough enforcement. No, Sweden is now bringing their speeds down.
But what was their speed limit when this was there?
On this one was 100 on the Dubbo.
And in Germany, the equivalent road.
Oh, it'd be an autobahn with proper barriers and everything is 100 and, well, whatever it is. On some, it's unlimited. On others, there is a limit, 120.
On the Dubbo road, it was 60. I saw it.
No, that's 60 in the work zone.
Okay.
Right.
That's a legal limit.
No, but it was 100 prior to that. Prior to that, it was
That's
100.
the problem with that curve because lots of
That
drivers
they
ignore it.
change your speed is on a road, so on a.
No. We're talking about the 100k limit. You're having a go at me now, Peter.
Does it 110 apply for
Sorry?
trucks as well?
What was that?
Does it 110 apply for trucks as well?
No.
No. Only-
It's in New Zealand. It's 90. You have to travel at 90.
I mean, this.
This particular one,
Speed limit to 100.
they're allowed to 100.
I'm just pointing out, this was when they had a road and they changed the speed limit,
Yeah.
and they saw an effect,
Yes.
and it was in both directions.
Yes.
So it really is not about where we are.
This is not about trucks. It's about all cars.
It's just saying for a given road, which makes sense.
Excuse me, Raph, I think all wheels are out, so up to you.
Yeah, I'll.
If you want to take a break.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Well, I'm almost done.
So if you just play-
Almost done.
It's just energy.
Okay. So this is the last couple of slides. The federal government mandated autonomous brakes in trucks because of this particular incident. Lachlan McIntosh, who is head of World NCAP, got involved in the coroner's court where Blake Corney was in a vehicle on the Monaro Highway and a truck ploughed into the back of him. And the back of the vehicle, he was seated in the back, the child, the parents in the front. He got taken out, and there was a coronial inquest. And had the vehicle had emergency braking, he would have survived. So now they introduced this emergency braking law. Okay, so that was introduced in 2022 with a phase-in. So hopefully most of the trucks will have this. So you can see these are the big rigs, okay? And I'll have to come out of this. I don't think I can. Will it show there? Let's see. I'll see if I can get this to work. There we go. So this was 12 years ago. Volvo had already come out with it, and the EU had introduced it way ahead of Australia. And so, not bad, is it? And so the issue here was, why hadn't we introduced it earlier? Because had they introduced it in sync with the EU, then Corey would have been alive. And so that was the argument that was being made in the coroner's court. And so
The answer to that is that the Europeans are way in front of the Americans.
not only Americans, Australians too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're way ahead of us.
The federal regulator
Yeah,
also takes note of who can supply this technology. The Europeans, to their credit, had mandated it early,
yes.
and they've gone the safety route.
Yeah.
The North Americans had not done that.
Oh no, they haven't. I agree. Yeah.
And the Australian regulator was not about to mandate and drive half of the market out of the Australian.
Why not? That's a cop-out. That is a real cop-out. Yeah, it is. As a road safety advocate, that is a total cop-out. It is, because you can purchase... I tell you what, the Americans would come racing over with their vehicles with this AEB as soon as that would have happened. It's a cop-out. So, there we go. So, that's it. Okay.
So thank you, Raph.
No problems.
Just in the interest of letting Raph get some sustenance, we might perhaps just take a break now, just all enjoy your meals, speakers included. Then we'll reconvene and Raph and Peter, you can work out between you whether you want to take